man, I really didn't think this was going to be a 4-part series, but I keep running out of space on my iPad and then running out of space on my phone, so I have to keep flip-flopping back and forth, so I apologize. I hope you guys make it this far. I hope that you find this entertaining, to say the least. Where I was talking about college, so yeah, I learned some bullshit stuff in elementary school that kind of set me back in my education. There were a lot of holes in my education of things that I didn't learn or didn't understand until I got to college, and so I had to kind of be remediated in college, and that's sad because I was a really good student, cared a lot about my grades. Anyway, so I learned actual science, how science actually works. I learned about evolution, and I learned about actual history and sociology, and I learned about like cross-cultural religions. I learned about other cultures, and I basically learned, other people in the world aren't just a bunch of heathens. They're actually people just like you and me, and they may have different belief systems and different cultures and different ways of life, but they are people just like us, and they deserve to be respected, and they deserve to live their life in peace. And that blew me away, literally, and I hate the thought that that's a thought process. Like, the thought process that I had was that people were sinners and they were heathens and they were going to go to hell, and they didn't care about being moral and all this stuff. And looking back, it's a very bigoted and hateful way of thinking, and I really despise the fact that that's how I was taught. But that's what an indoctrination does to children. You don't get an alternative to what is being said to you. And like I said before, I was very sheltered. I was not allowed to even listen to music that was outside of Christian music. I was not allowed to read books that would go against the Bible. I was not allowed to really even learn about other cultures. I remember being in history class in high school and being scared to learn about Buddhism because I thought that my soul was gonna be at war. Just really, I don't know. I thought that the devil was gonna come after me or something for learning about Buddhism. Woo! Anyway, in college I learned history, science, evolution. I learned that there were other ways of seeing the world, and that I wasn't gonna, turn into a pillar of ash if I dared to think for myself. So I developed critical thinking skills, got to attend a couple of really cool philosophy classes. I learned secular coping skills that actually worked for me, for my depression, for my trauma symptoms. And I'm still working on that today, even, I've been out of college for 3 years now. I'm still learning how to cope with everything. I attended counseling for myself and talked through some of the issues I was facing at the time. And I still attend counseling on occasion when I need it. I learned about my family's dysfunction. I learned how it affected me. And I learned how kind of religious indoctrination almost stunted the emotional maturity of my parents. And I'm not sure how much I want to talk about that because I don't, I need to mind the boundary of talking about my experience and not harming other people. But that's what I saw was religion. I feel like I should do a video on that. Maybe I can sum it up. So, whenever in religion, whenever you do something wrong, you're supposed to admit it and ask for forgiveness from God. And then the belief is that it's like it wiped away, washed white as snow, and you're made new, you're transformed, and you have like a new opportunity to go forth and be different. But what I see with that is, if someone doesn't fully process what they did, why it was wrong, why they did it, their reasoning, how it hurt other people, if they don't fully process and understand those things, and also learn new skills, new ways of coping, new ways of communicating, new ways of like dealing with stress or dealing with life, they're going to continue abusing other people and continue in that same pattern of behavior. And that's what happened in my family. That's why my family's dysfunctional. That's something we don't talk about. The big blue taboo elephant in the room in my family. I discovered the atheist movement, feminism, liberal and democratic ideas, and I found that I aligned so much more with these ways of seeing the world, because they were compassionate and humanistic, and they were inclusive of diversity, of people who were different. And it was like a breath of fresh air to realize that I could align with this other group of people who wanted to include everyone, to protect everyone's rights, and to give as much freedom as possible to people, and also as much help and support as possible to as many people as possible. So that was so much different than what I grew up with. The fear-mongering, guilt-tripping, sexism, bigotry, misogyny, like gay people hating, blaming, castigating, in-group versus out-group bias, etc., 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 that I was taught in church. So in the end, I changed my mind. I decided, you know what? I'm not a Christian. I'm not going to identify as a Christian. I am an atheist. I don't believe that a God exists. I'm setting myself free from trying to remedy the cognitive dissonance within this Christian religion, these horrible ideas that we're taught. I'm letting go of that, and I'm going to find a new way of life. And so since then, it's like I said, it's been about 5 years since I became an atheist. I've been reprocessing a lot of like what's happened to me, and it's taken me like this long to have the courage and have the words to share what happened to me in some semblance of a sensible timeline, sensible way of telling my story, and like being able to like encompass, what happened, why, and like why I felt the way that I felt. I was dealing with a lot of emotional pain, and so processing that, working through it, trying to find my way in life, trying to support myself. I'm now a counselor, and I work with primarily women who've experienced some sort of trauma in their life. And so I'm continuing to move on that path, and a goal of mine in my career is to start specializing in helping people recover from religion, helping people recover from religious trauma and spiritual trauma and other types of trauma that are instigated upon them if they grew up in some kind of like very dogmatic religion. I feel like the world really needs that work right now, especially with what's going on in politics and in American society right now, with the person who is in charge, who is just making a lot of mistakes and is making essentially making the country worse for a lot of us. Our culture is very split, left and right, and I feel I want to be a voice of hope, a voice of reason, a voice of, you don't have to go through this alone. You don't have to find a way to make yourself fit in that religion if it's hurting you, if you're experiencing that cognitive dissonance, which is where like you recognize how wrong things are within that religion, and yet you're trying to hang on to it because that's your family, that's, you know, your culture, that's how you grew up. I want to be a voice that says, you know, you can let go of that stuff. Life will be okay. I know it's really scary to think about, you know, leaving your religion. It's really scary to think about like being isolated and maybe even being shunned. Maybe even like, you know, having family that disagrees with you or even judges you or, you know, outcasts you or you know, whatever could happen. You know, in my humble opinion, in my life, I'm not speaking for everyone, it was so worth it to leave religion behind and find my own way in life, even though I was incredibly isolated and alone. I feel I've gained a more confident view of myself, and I'm able to be much more genuine and authentic, and you know, I can change my mind whenever I want to, and I can learn anything I want to, and you know, I can work through anything that comes at me. And I just want people to know that you don't have to stay in your religion. Like, there are other ways of living, and you're not a horrible heathen or sinner if you leave the church. You know, there are good people who have left religion, and our lives are going just fine. And you know, yeah, it'll be hard. Yeah, there are struggles for me still, but it's incredibly worth it. So that's my story, and I'm hoping that in the future I can bring more resources and information that can be helpful and useful, and maybe even give some like tips and tools for like overcoming religious and spiritual trauma, depression, and help you, you know, overcome what you're going through. So I'm going to say thanks so much for watching, and I like to say, because I've taught yoga before, I say namaste, the light in me honors the light in you, which means the kindness, the compassion within me honors the kindness and compassion with you. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Talk to you later.